The importance of outbound calling as it pertains to following up on unsold work, zero ticket items like unsold service work that was proposed and unsold, replacement work that was proposed and unsold, upgrades that were proposed and unsold is of paramount importance. And the follow-up process needs to be concise. It needs to actually be a process. So what we've done here at Snowball is created a process for you in which to have an outbound hero do just that. The outbound process is going to take you through how to do the outbound. We'll even included some scripting and time lengths and things of that nature. I'll share my screen here with you, and I will show you the outbound process in just a moment. Okay, so what you are looking at here is, in fact, the outbound hero follow-up process. There's going to have to be some setup done on ServiceTitan. So there will be 3 lists that need to be set up on ServiceTitan, the drop-down list. The first drop-down list we're going to name lead list. The second drop-down list we're going to name attempt day status. And the third drop-down list we're going to name lead status. Now, these lists are going to be tied to the job and service location. So each job and service location will have this list available to it. Here's the process. The outbound hero will follow recommendations below for following up on quoted repairs, replacements, and/or upgrades that were not closed at the time of service or visit. It is absolutely important in order to capture these sales. They're going to go somewhere. Somebody's going to actually do the work. And the only real way to capture that work is to make sure that there's a follow-up process that allows you to do so. And here it is. If a technician or a salesperson leaves with a zero ticket, no sale, or a credit decline, because credit decline does in fact play a role here, and that person has not scheduled a follow-up, the lead immediately goes into the inside follow-up rotation. And this is what this is about. It's an inside follow-up process. Now, if the tech or the salesperson left with zero ticket item and a no sale and did schedule a follow-up within 5 days, that's the cutoff, 5 days, and still doesn't close at that 5 days, the lead then will go to the inside follow-up process right after that 5 days, so immediately after the 5th day. Here are the instructions. The outbound hero is going to follow up for 8 days with up to 12 attempts of contact. Now, what's an attempt of contact? An attempt of contact is nothing more than a method of communication: phone, email, or text. And the process is as follows. We're going to follow up with the customer 3 times a day by 3 attempts of contact every other day for 8 days. 3 times a day, we're going to call, we're going to email, and we're going to text every other day for 8 days. The first follow-up attempt will be within 1 business day of the unclosed estimate. So 1 business day, if there was no follow-up scheduled, as we said earlier, like immediately the business day after is when we start this follow-up process, or on the 5th day, if a follow-up was in fact scheduled and it still wasn't closed. Okay. If you're unable to reach the customer after the 8 days and 12 attempts of contact, you're going to move the call to the next level on the list and begin the 8-day follow-up process again. Here was that list we talked about. Initially, the list when we start is going to be hot lead, and I'll get into this list a little later. Initially, we're starting with a hot lead. Then we're going to move it to the next available list, which is warm lead. So this is after the 8 days if we have not gotten in touch with that particular customer. So after the 8 days, we're going to start the follow-up process again. Same kind of thing. We're going to continue this process until the customer has reached the cold list, which will be 16 days. We followed up on a hot list. We didn't get in touch with them. We followed up. We moved them to a warm list. We still didn't get in touch with them after 8 days. Now we're day 16. We're going to move them to the cold list at that point and continue with another 8-day cycle. Same 8-day cycle. If you've been unable to reach them after 24 days, which is basically 3 8-day cycles, we're going to change the lead status to lost lead, unable to reach. And then we're going to remove them from our work list. We have moved them from hot lead to warm lead to cold lead. And in the lead status, this should be updated during each call as well. But in the lead status, if we're still unable to reach them after 24 days and 12 attempts, we need to change them to lost lead, unable to reach. Here's what the lead list designation, how it breaks down. Hot leads, Most recent estimates added daily. So every time there's an estimate that's unclosed, that has to be added daily. Estimates that typically that are added here are no older than 30 days. So if you're starting today for the first time doing this follow-up process, look at anything that was proposed that wasn't sold that is 30 days or younger, and you will put it into this hot lead designation. The warm lead designation, if the estimates are 31 to 60 days, or they have gone through the first 8-day follow-up cycle, as we just described. The cold lead designation, estimates are 61 to 90 days old, or have gone through the second 8-day follow-up cycle. And then the credit decline, all right? We're going to work the credit decline leads the same way as we worked 1, 2, and 3. And even though they've been declined on credit, quite often, if we follow up, there are alternative means of them getting the money they need in order for them to be able to fund the project. Sometimes they can borrow it personally. Sometimes they can family or friends or things of that nature. So we don't want to immediately just discard them and say, well, they got declined, and we can't do anything about it. Continue to follow up with them as well until the lead has either closed or it ages out. If this happens to sell, by the way, okay, so if there's a credit decline and we do the outbound calling and we follow this 1 through 3, hot lead, warm lead, cold lead, and are able to get them to purchase, right? If it is sold, we don't want to change the credit decline tag. Now, typically in ServiceTitan, if we have a credit decline, there's a tag that will be created that says credit decline. So we don't want to change the tag, but we do want to change the status. And here it is. The status at this point is this status. We're going to change it as sold if in fact it sells. And that status should change no matter any of them if they sell. But if it sells in a credit decline scenario, change the status to sold, leave the credit decline tag. And here's why. This will allow us to be able to pull a report that shows how credit declines that were taken care of by inside sales found alternative means of funding. So the report will show credit declines that actually sold as a direct result of inside sales or an outbound hero making these phone calls. Again, to reiterate, we don't want to change the credit decline tag, but we do want to change the status to sold. And we've put together a script as well. And this script pertains to anything unsold repairs, replacements, or add-ons and upgrades. Now, feel free to modify this to your needs. You don't have to necessarily go word for word, but the script outline is here for your review and your use. You will see here where it says tech or salesperson and the name, right? So you have to have some information, obviously, before you start making telephone calls. So if you're an outbound hero and you're doing outbound calling, it is critical that you get some information first. Find out what in fact was proposed, find out who they spoke with, find out what the challenges were, those sorts of things. Hopefully there are sufficient notes in the system for you to be able to do so before you make a phone call. Follow the script and you will have great success in closing many of the calls that were not sold.